Welcome to The Lone Cure. You know, the internet corner where you learn lifelong lessons in just minutes of listening.
And today, we're doing a deep dive summarizing a fantastic read.
We are digging into excerpts from Blink, The Power of Thinking Without Thinking by Malcolm Gladwell.
Highly recommend reading the whole thing if you like what you hear today. It's definitely worth it.
Oh, absolutely. And if you learn something, which you definitely will, please do like and subscribe for more.
Okay, so Blink. It's all about that rapid cognition, right? Those snap judgments, first impressions that happen, well, in a blink.
Exactly. And we're not just doing a surface summary here. We really want to get into the power and, let's be honest, the potential dangers of that kind of thinking.
How our minds actually make these super fast decisions. And looking at some frankly surprising examples, art, relationships.
Even stuff like doctor diagnoses and police work. It has huge implications.
Yeah, so the goal today is to unpack some key insights from these sources, understand how this quick thinking works, and explore what it means for you, for how you might think about your own instincts, your gut feelings.
And maybe where your blind spots are, too.
That, too, definitely. So let's dive in. The core idea Gladwell introduces is called thin slicing.
Thin slicing. Okay.
It's basically our mind's ability to find patterns, to make sense of situations based on really, really narrow windows of experience, like tiny slices of information.
Just seconds sometimes.
Or less. And it's not some, exotic skill. It's fundamental. It's a central part of being human. We do it all the time without even thinking about the complex stuff happening underneath.
The sources give some pretty amazing examples. The one about the Getty Museum and that Greek statue, the Kouros, that really stands out.
Oh, the chorus, yeah. So the Getty is about to buy the statue. Looks right, paperwork seems okay, passes the initial scientific checks.
Everything seems legit.
Right. But then they bring in the real heavy hitters, the world-class experts on Greek sculpture.
And they just knew.
Instantly. It was this immediate gut reaction. Federico Zeri looks at the fingernails and just feels they're wrong. Can't immediately explain why, but they're just off.
And Evelyn Harrison, she just says, I'm sorry to hear that. Like, sorry you're buying this thing.
Exactly. Just a hunch, a feeling that something was amiss. Thomas Hoving from the Met, he basically says, get your money back if you already bought it.
Wow. That direct.
Yeah. And then later, Greek experts see it. George Despinus goes pale, says it's never been in the ground. Angelos Delavorius feels this intuitive repulsion.
And the key thing is, none of them sat down with a checklist at first. It was instant.
Totally instinctive. It wasn't slow analytical reasoning. Their brains, packed with decades of looking at real artifacts, processed subtle cues almost unconsciously and screamed, fake, even before they could consciously list all the reasons why.
That's thin slicing from experts at the top of their game.
A perfect example. Their unconscious minds were doing this massive computation based on visual data, leading to that powerful gut feeling.
Okay, so from ancient art, let's jump to something completely different. Marriage. The sources talk about John Gottman and his love lab.
Right. Now, you'd think, intuitively, understanding a marriage takes ages, right? You need to see couples handle money, kids, stress, good times, bad times.
The whole 9 yards, over years.
That's the logical thought. But Gottman discovered something remarkable. He found he could predict, with really high accuracy, like often over 80%, whether a couple would stay together or divorce.
Just by watching them talk for how long?
15 minutes.
15 minutes, seriously. How? What was he looking for?
He developed this incredibly detailed coding system, SPAFF, specific affect, basically breaking down every single second of their interaction. Words, tone, facial expressions, body language, everything got coded into specific emotions.
Like anger, sadness.
Defensiveness, whining, stonewalling, yeah. But the one emotion that really jumped out, the most toxic one, was contempt.
Contempt, like looking down on your partner. Disgust.
Exactly. That eye roll Sue gave Bill in the example conversation, that kind of dismissive, superior attitude, they coded every second for stuff like that.
So these tiny little signals, things you might barely notice,
packed a huge predictive punch. Even really subtle things, like if one partner wasn't giving those little verbal nods, the uh-huhs and yes when the other was talking, that could be a sign of trouble in less obvious cases.
So Gottman didn't need their whole life story. Just a thin slice of interaction revealed these crucial patterns.
Precisely. And contempt was the big one. The sources call it the most important predictor of marital breakdown. It's just corrosive. They even mention links to health problems, like more colds for the person on the receiving end.
And it wasn't just one gender expressing it more.
Nope, the data showed no difference there. Contempt is an equal opportunity marriage killer, apparently.
Okay, so whether it's spotting fakes or predicting futures, our minds grab key info from these thin slices.
And so much of this happens unconsciously. That's the really fascinating part. It's behind what Gladwell calls a locked door.
The locked door. Explain that.
It's the idea that our unconscious mind is doing all this heavy lifting, processing, analyzing, deciding, but we're often only aware of the final output. You know, the gut feeling, the sudden insight. We don't get to see the calculations.
Like Vic Braden, the tennis coach who knew when players would double fault.
Exactly. He could just tell instantly, watching them prepare to serve. Knew it was coming, but it drove him crazy because he couldn't explain how he knew. Was it the ball toss, the foot position? He tried to analyze it consciously, but that immediate knowledge, that gist, it came from behind the locked door. Pure, thin-sliced instinct.
And this isn't just anecdotes. The sources bring in those priming experiments from John Bargh. They really show how much we're swayed by things we don't consciously notice.
Oh, the priming stuff is mind-bending. Priming is just when being exposed to something, a word, an image unconsciously influences how you react to something else later.
And Bargh's experiments had some pretty dramatic results, like the scramble sentence one.
Right. Participants unscramble sentences. Some groups get sentences with words subtly related to rudeness. Others get words related to politeness. Then they have to go interrupt the experimenter who's deliberately tied up in a conversation.
You'd think maybe the rude group would interrupt a bit faster, like milliseconds faster.
That's what Bargh thought too, but it wasn't milliseconds, it was minutes. The rude group interrupted, on average, after about 5 minutes. But the polite group, get this, 82% of them never interrupted at all within the 10-minute time limit.
Wow. They just stood there.
Yeah.
Because they saw words like polite and respect.
Unconsciously. It's kind of unsettling how powerfully those subtle cues shifted their behavior without them having any idea why.
And it wasn't just behavior, right?
Yeah.
The Trivial Pursuit test.
Yeah, priming affected actual performance. Students who were primed to think about professors just before taking a Trivial Pursuit quiz did significantly better than students primed to think about soccer hooligans.
Not because they suddenly knew more answers.
No, it just put them in a smarter frame of mind, unconsciously triggering associations with intelligence and knowledge, which somehow boosted their performance.
It really suggests we're operating on automatic pilot a lot more than we think, influenced by stuff we don't consciously choose or even register.
Definitely challenges that feeling of being completely in conscious control. Our unconscious is constantly processing, influencing decisions, and we often can't accurately explain why we feel a certain way or made a certain snap judgment. That's the storytelling problem.
Like Ted Williams thinking he saw the ball hit the bat.
Perfect example. His brain performed an incredible feat of timing and coordination, but his conscious explanation of how he did it just wasn't accurate. Our conscious mind tells a story, but it doesn't always know the real mechanism behind the locked door.
Okay, so thin slicing is powerful, often unconscious. But it's not foolproof. When does it lead us down the wrong path?
Right, because it definitely can. The sources suggest it fails when we encounter something totally new, when we get stuck on the surface level, or, and this is a big one, when our unconscious biases get tangled up in the process.
The story about Warren Harding becoming president seems like a textbook case of that surface-level problem.
Oh, absolutely. A classic Warren Harding error. Harry Daugherty meets Harding, and his immediate thought is just, oh, wow, this guy looks like a president. He had the look, the great-looking president.
But his actual resume wasn't quite presidential timber.
Not really, no. The sources paint him as not particularly bright, more interested in poker, golf, drinking, women. Pretty fuzzy on actual policy, but he looked the part.
And that look was enough to make him a compromise candidate when the party convention deadlocked.
It played a huge role, and history's verdict is pretty clear. He's consistently ranked as one of the worst presidents. A snap judgment based purely on superficial looks led to a really bad outcome.
Which connects straight into the idea of unconscious bias, doesn't it? The sources explore this with the implicit association test, the IAT.
Exactly. The Harding error is about being fooled by appearance. But the IAT tries to measure those deeper automatic associations we might not even know we have.
Remind us how the IAT works again.
It basically measures your reaction time, how quickly you can pair different concepts together, like pairing pictures of, say, black faces and white faces with good words and bad words, or pairing male and female faces with concepts like work or family.
The idea being, if concepts are already linked in your mind, you'll pair them faster.
That's the theory. And what the tests often find is that people, even people who consciously believe in equality and reject stereotypes, often show faster associations between, say, white and good or male and work than the reverse pairings.
So it's tapping into something below conscious belief.
Yes. Is measuring these unconscious attitudes, these associations built up over years from culture, media, experience. They pop out automatically before conscious thought kicks in. And crucially, you can't just decide to turn them off. Simply wanting to be unbiased doesn't automatically change those deep-seated rapid associations.
That's a really important point. Awareness helps, but it doesn't instantly fix the underlying unconscious connection.
Right. The IAT suggests there's this whole other layer of attitude operating unconsciously, and it can definitely color our snap judgments, our thin slicing, without us realizing it.
So how does all this play out in the real world, like day-to-day situations, business, medicine?
The sources have some great examples. Take car sales. There's this super successful salesman, Bob Galam. His #1 rule: never, ever prejudge a customer by how they look.
Because those Warren Harding errors are everywhere at a car dealership.
Totally. Salespeople make instant assumptions. Oh, that farmer in overalls, he can't afford this. That teenager, just browsing. That quiet woman with her husband, he's the decision maker. Galam knew those judgments were often dead wrong.
The farmer might be loaded, the teenager comes back with parents, the woman makes the final call.
Exactly. So Galam's strategy was simple. Treat everyone the same. Quote, the same fair price up front. Build his business on volume and reputation, not on trying to spot the easy mark based on unreliable first impressions. He knew his own thin slicing based on appearance was likely flawed.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then there's that study about doctors and malpractice suits. That was really striking.
Nalini Ambadi's work. They wanted to know what really predicted whether a doctor got sued. Was it their training, how many mistakes they made?
Or something else.
Or something else. They took tiny snippets, like seconds long, of conversations between doctors and patients, just audio clips.
And they could predict lawsuits from just that.
Amazingly, yes. With pretty high accuracy. It wasn't primarily about the doctor's technical skill necessarily. It was about their tone of voice.
Just the tone, how they sounded.
Yeah. The researchers and later judges listening to the clips could identify doctors likely to be sued based on whether their tone sounded dominant and dismissive versus concerned and respectful.
So the core issue was the relationship, the feeling of being respected.
That's what the source suggests. Malpractice suits often stem from patients feeling dismissed, not listened to, disrespected. And that feeling, that lack of respect, came through loud and clear in the doctor's tone in just a few seconds.
So the takeaway for you, listening, is maybe trust that gut feeling if your doctor's tone feels off.
It's certainly worth paying attention to. That thin slice of the tone might be giving you really important information about the quality of that crucial relationship.
Okay, so these rapid judgments are powerful, sometimes flawed. But what about situations where maybe having more information or taking more time to analyze actually makes things worse?
Yeah, that's another fascinating twist. Sometimes trying to process too much information or relying only on slow, deliberate analysis can actually backfire.
Like the chest pain diagnoses at Cook County Hospital. That seemed like a case of information overload.
Definitely. That ER was swamped. Doctors had to make quick calls. Does this patient with chest pain need an expensive, limited bed in the cardiac unit, or can they go home? They were using all their experience, weighing tons of factors.
But they weren't getting it right very often.
No. They were making potentially dangerous errors, sending some heart attack patients home, and also admitting lots of people who weren't having heart attacks, tying up beds unnecessarily. Their complex judgment was basically informed guesswork.
Until the algorithm came along.
Right, Dr. Lee Goldman's algorithm. It deliberately simplified things, ignored a lot of the info doctors might usually consider, including, the source's note, potentially biasing factors like race or gender. It focused only on the ECG results plus 3 specific risk factors.
Just those few things.
Just those. Unstable angina, fluid in the lungs, low blood pressure. And they did a head-to-head comparison. Algorithm versus doctor's judgment.
And the algorithm.
It was significantly better, much better at correctly identifying patients who weren't having heart attacks, and crucially, it was safer, more accurate at spotting the serious cases who really needed that critical care bed.
So sometimes stripping away information actually leads to better, faster, more accurate decisions.
It seems so. It cuts through the noise and potential biases. More information isn't always better. It can overwhelm us. Remember that Oscount study with psychologists. More info made them more confident in their diagnosis, but not more accurate.
That's really counterintuitive. Then there's the Millennium Challenge war game with Paul Van Riper.
Ah, yes. A huge, expensive war game. Blue Team had all the tech, all the data, all the analytical tools. They were supposed to represent the future of warfare. Systematic, data-driven decisions.
Again, Van Riper's red team, who was skeptical of all that analysis.
Exactly. Van Riper believed war is inherently chaotic, unpredictable. He thought too much analysis leads to paralysis. He trusted intuition, experience, rapid adaptation, what he called the wisdom, experience, and good judgment of his commanders.
His style was in command and out of control.
Right. Give clear intent, but let people on the ground use their initiative, react quickly. Don't get bogged down in rigid plans.
And he completely blindsided the high-tech blue team.
Wiped them out, essentially. Used unexpected low-tech tactics, small boats, cruise missiles, and sank 16 ships simulatedly in under an hour. 20,000 casualties if it were real. His intuitive, fast, adaptive approach completely broke the blue team's analytical model before they could even fully implement it.
They had to reset the whole game.
Yeah, they had to stop, refloat the ships, pretend the missiles were shot down because Van Riper's human intuition and rapid cognition had basically proven their premise wrong. It showed that in fast-moving, high-pressure situations, sometimes that practiced intuition is far more effective than slow deliberation. It's like that fire lieutenant instinctively knowing the fire was in the basement.
So rapid cognition under pressure can be brilliant, but the sources also give us the Amadou Diallo shooting as a tragic example of where it goes terribly wrong.
Yes, a truly devastating case. It highlights how thin slicing can fail catastrophically when extreme stress and unconscious bias collide. The officer saw Diallo, young black man, lousy neighborhood, late at night, acting odd, and a rapid biased judgment formed.
The source describes it as a kind of snap equation. Small guy plus bad area plus late plus black, probable threat.
And that initial bias filter distorted everything else. His curiosity looked like defiance. His fear looked like aggression.
And then the stress kicked in, hard.
Exactly. The sources talk about mind blindness under extreme arousal. When your heart rate skyrockets, your thinking literally narrows. Your ability to read subtle social cues, to understand another person's intentions, your mind-reading ability can just shut down.
You start processing people almost like objects.
Yeah.
The source compared it to autism in that specific context.
It's a powerful analogy for how, under that intense pressure cooker of fear and bias, the officers stopped seeing Diallo's fear or confusion and just focused on the object in his hand. His wallet became a gun in their perception.
A fatal misjudgment fueled by bias and stress hormones.
Yes. The sources present it as a catastrophic failure of rapid cognition, where bias and arousal overrode the ability to accurately perceive the situation. Not necessarily conscious malice, but a breakdown in the system itself.
Given all the power, the pitfalls, the biases, the stress, can we actually get better at thin slicing? Can we avoid these errors?
Well, it's tricky. Remember the locked door. The sources are clear that you can't just consciously will your unconscious biases away, or force yourself to have a better IAT score by trying harder. Those automatic associations are deep.
But we're not totally stuck.
No, definitely not. We can influence the process by changing the context, or through specific kinds of training and experience.
Like the blind orchestra auditions. That seems like a clear win for changing the context.
Absolutely. Orchestras used to have huge biases, especially against women. Appearance, gender stereotypes, they influenced hiring, consciously or unconsciously.
So they put up screens?
Right. Screens during auditions. Assign numbers, not names. Judges can't talk. Suddenly, all that external information, what the musician looked like, their gender, their race, was removed. All the judges had was the music itself.
And the difference was huge.
Massive. A 5-fold increase in women hired by top orchestras once screens were common. Think of Julie Landsman winning the principal horn job at the Met. Behind the screen, the judges heard incredible playing and gave her the job, maybe overcoming subconscious biases they might have had about women playing horn forcefully. It was a pure blink moment where removing bias allowed expertise to shine.
It really shows how controlling the environment can let us make better, fairer judgments by stripping away misleading information.
Exactly. And sometimes the issue isn't even external bias, but how we interpret our own first impressions, especially with new things. That storytelling problem, again. We feel discomfort with novelty and call it dislike.
You mean like with new Coke? Or the Aran chair?
Perfect examples. The Pepsi Challenge sip tests. People preferred Pepsi, a thin slice. But New Coke bombed because in real life, drinking a whole can, context matters. People like the idea and familiarity of original Coke more than the taste of New Coke in a sip.
And the Aaron chair got called an insect exoskeleton.
Yeah, initial reactions were negative, based purely on looks. It was weird, unfamiliar. Market research picked up that dislike, but it wasn't real dislike, just discomfort with strangeness. Once people actually used it, experienced the comfort, they loved it. It became iconic. The first impression was misleading because it was just about the unfamiliar appearance.
Like those groundbreaking TV shows. All in the Family, Mary Tyler Moore. Initial reactions weren't great either.
Because they broke the mold. They were different. Viewers needed time for their thin slicing systems to adapt, to get past the weirdness and appreciate the quality. So relying solely on those initial superficial snap judgments, especially for innovative things, can be really wrong. Real expertise, like those food tasters with their detailed scales, involves understanding context and going deeper than the first blink. And for us, the sources emphasize awareness. Knowing about implicit bias, maybe even taking an IAT to see your own patterns. Understanding how extreme stress can cause that temporary mind blindness. Training can help too. Stress inoculation, like bodyguards use, can lower heart rates under pressure, keeping the mind clear. And simply practicing reading cues improves our ability.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've journeyed through these sources, seen thin slicing in action from art experts and marriage gurus to military strategy.
And we've seen where it breaks down fooled by looks, warped by bias, overwhelmed by information, short-circuited by stress. It's clearly a double-edged sword, a vital human tool, but one we need to use with caution and self-awareness.
So for you listening, the question becomes, how do you navigate this? How do you become more aware of your own snap judgments? When should you trust that gut feeling? And when is it time to hit pause, gather more objective data, or maybe even try to structure the situation, like putting up that audition screen, to get a clearer view?
You know, one of the really powerful undercurrents in these sources is this idea that sometimes knowing less is actually better.
Anything?
Like the doctors ignoring race and gender for the heart attack algorithm, or the orchestra ignoring appearance. By deliberately filtering out certain information, they made better, fairer, clearer judgments. They cut through the noise.
So maybe the final thought for you to ponder is this. In a world drowning in information, is the ultimate skill not just processing more data faster, but learning what data to ignore, what to filter out in those crucial first seconds to let the real signal come through.
Something to think about the next time you have that instant gut reaction.